Cool.
Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to the dojo, man. I am excited. This is episode 2, and I've got a special guest with me. Sometimes you run into people and they just kind of, leave an impression on you, and they're just solid individuals. And that's the guy that I have with me today. This is Ryan Regan, and you might know him as Saddle Hunter, which Hunter spelled HNTR, all of it squished together. You have a pretty amazing YouTube channel that we'll talk about probably a little bit, but welcome to the dojo, man. Thanks for being on.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Matt. Thanks for having me. Pretty early on with the dojo, so it's a pleasure to actually make it on the list and get this conversation, kick-started here. So, congratulations. I'll just start there with the podcast. So, pretty cool venture.
Yeah, thanks, man. I just wanted to honestly talk to people like you and other people and just learn. So I'm doing it for that reason. And yeah, so you'll have about 10 people that'll hear this. And
Hey, ten's better than none. So, to
yeah,
help somebody out, I'm all for it.
but you never know. Down the road, we might have some people come back and listen. So why don't you give a little intro of yourself and so people get to know you? I'm sure a lot of people already do, but for the people who don't.
Yeah. So I got a couple kids, happily married, 36, live in Michigan, and have just primarily been bow hunting whitetails for years. I think probably like 2004 is really where I started doing it right out of high school ish. So I would say maybe 20 years or so underneath my belt of pursuing a lot of whitetails and that kind of thing. I really didn't do too much for small game or trapping, or I didn't really dive into that. It was whitetails. My dad, he grew up with a shotgun in his hand, and it's just for me, it's kind of evolved in the whole bow hunting aspect of it. And I started out on public land, and I learned the hard way. I had a mentor. I had some buddies that I would hunt with, and over time, learned to appreciate reading the woods, understanding what I was looking at, and slowly just developing a bit of a learning curve there. And, I wasn't really out to shoot 120 or poke and young deer, right? I'm just trying to get reps underneath my belt and experience in the woods. So yeah, so since then, I guess take it up a notch to now, it's changed so much for me. I think, uh, it I'm fully invested in this with the mobile hunting community, the surrounding people. It just a local guy in a pro shop to someone you might meet at TAC or at an event, and you hit it off. And I mean, we're a great example of that.
Mhm.
Meeting at some events here in Michigan and just networking and sharing some stories and hunts and what everyone's up to, that kind of thing. But yeah, so right now for me, it's just been just kind of dabbling with traditional, a little bit of everything, because I'm kind of in this process where I don't want to say that compound archery's been easy, but man, the technology is just it's efficient, let's say. So, for me, it's kind of been nice to kind of just change it up a bit this prior season, and we'll jump into that. But it's been a blast to kind of relearn the woods and just with a different feel there with shooting a longbow. But overall, glad to be on, and that's a little bit about me, I guess, a little bit of a backstory there.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, backing up to some of that, when I met you, I think it was at the Mobile Hunter Roadshow, I think.
Yep.
Or at least this last time. I've seen you at a couple events, but we really got to talk last time. And I mean, I really appreciate you because you sent me a pair of backpack straps for the point five. And
Yep.
when you sent it to me, I had a little note in there that said get some blood on it. And the first buck that I shot out of it was that buck that I shot earlier this year. So it
Yeah.
was pretty awesome, man. And I got home and I saw that note and I was like, man, that's pretty sweet. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's a solid move, man. You're a really good guy, and I appreciate you coming on. You
Yeah.
you you kind of you started talking about traditional. We'll definitely get there because I think it's a really relevant topic right now as we look at some of the technology that's coming out and the tension that goes along with all of that. And I see some guys starting to kind of pull away from all that technology and wanting to go more of a simplistic route. and use some of those those more traditional methods of taking deer. But you have a YouTube channel that I don't want to describe it for you. I mean, how would you describe your YouTube channel? Like, what's its purpose?
Yeah, I guess the intention behind it to start was jumping into the mobile hunting community and the industry, and the products that are there aren't in typical brick and mortar stores. You can't go to a Cabela's or a Bass Pro Shops or a Shields or local pro shop. I think you can now because it's starting to expand, but the essentially to start, I was like, man, a lot of these reviews that I'm watching, it's like, I don't want to dog on anybody. I don't want to throw out any negative feedback. But it's like I don't have 45 minutes to sit through and have you tell me about how great a product it is. And then I have to go and sit through a lot of that stuff for 4 or 5 other different people just to build my own thoughts on a product, if it's good or bad, or if I want to invest the money into it as a product. So I thought, man, if I'm already buying all of this stuff, why don't I just, try to just provide something very clean, concise, something that might help another hunter, another mobile hunter, give them some background feedback on products. So it's part of, I guess, my passion of mobile hunting to be able to share some of my firsthand experience on products, give a little bit of flavor around the review process, but also kind of batch it up in a very like clean 5 minute kind of spiel, right? So you're getting like high level, like, what's this about? Is it good? And then kind of establish some trust with maybe my following, right?
Mhm.
Does this guy know what he's talking about? And kind of go from there. But I've kind of tossed in some like hunting stuff and maybe some other more insightful things like around packs and how to set up for a saddle hunting kit or vice versa. So I think anything related to mobile hunting really, I have a queue of a ton of different things that I need to do reviews on. And so that's just kind of, that's kind of the deal, I guess, for the YouTube side of things. But
Yeah, and I mean, I'll have a link on this video and then and all the posts that I put out there to your channel because I've learned a ton out of it. So I've been hunting I've been doing mobile hunting for, I don't know, 16, 17 years, something like that.
mhm,
So I've been out of a saddle for that long. And
mhm,
then probably 20 years because I was in a climber before then.
mhm.
And I learned so much from your videos. One of the videos that I have a daisy chain for my
Yeah,
sticks. And you did a video, I don't know if it was in this last year or so, at least I saw it in the last year, where if you forgot your aiders, you can loop it down and then put it back
yeah,
and it creates like an aider.
yeah.
And it happened to me. I usually use like a 3-step aider that comes along with me. For some reason, I didn't have it in my pack. And I wasn't going to be able to get up as high as I needed to. And your technique actually helped me do it. So I learned a lot from you, man.
Yeah, I'll say something real quick on that. I'm very heavily focused in gear and what's the hottest and latest trends and lightweight packability, this and that. But when it comes to hunting, I'm about as minimalist as it gets. I don't like carrying in a bunch of crap. I don't want to carry a 40, 30 pound backpack full of stuff. And I'm going in with like surgically to go in there and kill a deer, and I'm going to go in there and just take the basic essentials that I need to do it. And that's typically a saddle, a stand, a set of sticks, a platform, maybe a rangefinder, and your bow, right? Like,
Mhm.
and so when I look at those sticks and I look at that daisy chain attachment method, man, if you're in a smaller diameter tree, you're gonna, those are either in 6 foot lengths or eight
Mhm.
feet length. So you have plenty of distance to actually maximize that full stick as a full length stick that you would typically see like the old lone wolf sticks out there. And you don't have to carry in a bunch of extra stuff. You don't have to put away extra stuff at the end of the hunt. It's all there right within the daisy chain. So if you're good at securing those tightly and or tight enough to the tree to make sure that there's not enough slop or slack in those trees, you can have a really efficient little kit there. It's about as minimal as it can get. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I like about your videos and I think the way you think, it reminds me of kind of like an engineer.
Hmm.
I mean, you really break things down and the efficiency, what you said about efficiency really rings true. And even the attaching the stick. It actually makes me kind of doubt my skills a little bit when I watch your videos because I'm like, man, I've been doing this for so long, and yet, so there was another method that I learned was turning the six sideways and then
Yeah.
putting the daisy chain on it and bringing it back, and it just cams it right in, solid as a rock.
Yep.
Now that's how I do it every time when I'm out there. So I appreciate that. I think no matter who you are, if you're listening to this, this is the purpose of this dojo is for you to learn techniques. You have to go to this YouTube channel. You are going to learn, I mean, so much about efficiency and how to really utilize your gear. There's no other, and I'm not just saying this because you're on here. There
Mhm.
is no other channel that I've learned as much from when it in regards to gear and how to use it properly. So I can't you recommend it enough for people to go see your YouTube channel.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, I think that at the end of the day, if you can take something out of a YouTube video or a podcast, it's just a matter of the consumers finding it. So it's just kind of being due diligent, staying persistent with just little tips and tricks and things and little nuances that maybe others don't think about. And I watch reviews on other products from other people too, and I'm always looking for something that might be insightful that I could apply to my own setup. So.
So, so gear, I mean, it seems like in the last couple years, the the industry is especially around saddle hunting, and now actually, I mean, I take that back, even with stands now,
Mhm.
it there's so much new stuff coming out. There's so much new technology coming out, and there's a huge focus on gear and technology. And we were kind of talking about this a little earlier before we got started. I'm starting to sense like this tension around it, where when is it too much? When is the advantage? I guess from the deer starting to lose a little bit of its advantage because we have all this technology. And I've watched some people go a more traditional road. I don't know if that's why you did it, but you went traditional this year.
Yeah.
And I mean, you were a maniac out there. I mean, it was insane. You were
Yeah.
killing deer after deer. It was one hell of a year. So
Yeah.
I'd love to hear about that, man. Like, why did
Yeah.
you do that, and just kind of your process and how it went?
Yeah. So I'll break this down. So in technology, it's a huge factor in it, right? Cell cams, putting up trail cameras in general, 60, 70 guys are just out there dropping them left and right everywhere. And understanding public land, a lot of them are going to get stolen. I'm not a heavy trail cam guy. I'll be the first one to tell you that. I think I have two cell cams and I could care less if they're on or off. And sometimes I pay for them like that. I might have a subscription for one going right now and I have batteries for it in it. So, it just, for me, there's a time and a place for them. I think inventory, early season, summer, bachelors, find them, get the intel. If you know they're there, that's all I need to know, right? There's nothing that beats boots on the ground.
Hmm.
So technology can only do so much. And if you're sitting at bed at 9:30 and you got a ping on your cell phone that he walked by your tree stand, you're not, you're, that guy isn't, he's basically using the trail cam to tell him when he needs to hunt,
Hmm.
right? And for me, I'm not someone that's going to wait. I logged, I think, over 40 hunts this year.
Hmm.
And that's not 40 days of hunting, and that's not full days of hunting, right? Kids, 9 to 5, weekend warrior type stuff, get out when I can after work. So I'm talking, let's just say average of maybe 4 hours per hunt, right? Well, if you break that down, 4 hours times 40 or whatever it is, like 160 hours. If you divide that down by days, it's only 6.5 days
Hmm.
of hunting, right? From October 1st till the end of December. And it's go time, right? And it seems like, man, it's such a long season. When you break it down like that, you have to be out in the woods. You can't be relying on your trail cameras and you have to go sit in a tree. You got to be in the best spot to set yourself up for success. And no matter, like I said, I'll go back to it, the boots on the ground, the scouting, putting the time in. That doesn't happen with technology. That doesn't happen with gear, right? I think everyone can say, hey, this makes me more efficient. This makes it, my setup more effective. The functionality side of things, perfect, right? Like you got to find what works for you. But at the end of the day, I had one of my best success stories, like, this year, and that was leaving the compound at home. And I'll tell you, I've never shot a compound or a longbow before 2023.
Yep.
Not once. Maybe when I was in like fourth grade at like a camp and they had archery,
Yeah.
like where you could go shoot. But you didn't know, you don't really know what you're doing then. But I look back at all the years of hunting and primarily bow hunting. I just love it. There's something about being in a bedroom with a deer, knowing he's in the area, seeing their breath, the driplets and drops on their nose. It's more of an intimate feeling. It's and for you to get it done with a longbow, it just makes it more of that much more rewarding. But I'll also say this too, like we all have been beginners once,
Hmm.
right? So for me, this was like, let's start from scratch. Let's make it exciting. Let's not focus on all the gear and the technology and go the opposite direction. So that's kind of my reasoning for it. I also wanted to challenge myself to say, what am I going to do this year? What are my goals? You know, and I started thinking about it, and I'm like, man, I would really like to do this traditional stuff. And so I thought, man, I'll just start asking some of my friends, some other guys in the community. Is this very difficult to figure out and help with the learning curve? And I relied on multiple guys for my information and
Hmm.
the learning curve, the growth there, all that exponential growth right out the gate. I would have had maybe spent months upon months trying to figure out what I needed to buy. How do I, because you're starting from scratch, you'd like to think you have some sort of idea, but if you're not comfortable with it and you don't know, you don't really know where to start. But yeah, so that's kind of the backstory there on just why I transitioned to traditional. And so now, I mean, we're into 2024 here. Do I go back to the compound or do I stick with it? Right. But with the compound, all of the deer that I've shot were probably inside 20 to 25 yards. I'm
Yep.
talking every one of them.
Yep. Mine
Right.
too.
So, my thought process was, man, if I go to traditional, I'm going to lose out on opportunities. And sometimes you might only get one shot at a buck, and that's it. He's spooked, he's gone, he's caught your wind, you're dust. And I thought, man, if I'm killing deer consistently at 20 to 25, I know I can do it with this longbow. So let me figure it out. And so knowing just kind of some background that you need to practice a lot and shoot it every day and this and that, I thought, well, there's going to be a little bit of a time commitment, but I devoted that time to it
Hmm.
every day. And I would shoot somewhere between 20, 30 arrows. Like I wanted this bow to know me. I wanted to know the bow, and I wanted it to feel as smooth as a hand release on a compound bow, right? If you draw your compound bow, it's a very mechanical, release. Everything is consistent through the shot. Not much is really changing there. But when you think about it and you're drawing that longbow back, you are the release. You are the mechanism. And if you don't have the correct anchor point, no kisser buttons, no peeps, no Bomar nose buttons, no sights. It's the arrow, the stick bow, and you. To be able to consistently draw that back and make a repeatable shot at foam
Hmm.
was somewhat difficult to start, right? It's kind of all over the board, and I was shooting, start in at like 5, 10 yards. And I was hitting the target the first time and go, man, this is great, right? But you know how it is with shooting at tack, and then you jump into a tree and it's go time, and you got that buck that you've been after. He's coming in. Things change, right?
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
that's
Hmm.
just bottom line. There's nothing that's going to get you in a different situation other than hunting, and taking a lot of deer. So for me, my mindset wasn't to go kill a 200-inch buck. I didn't have one on camera. I don't run cameras really, but it was, I need to get reps. I need to, be able to shoot not whatever comes by me, but I need to be an opportunist hunter. And I need to, because I'll usually bring in maybe 4 to 5 deer a year, typically on average.
Hmm.
Right. So as long as I can hit that, I'm happy from the meat side of things. And, from a trophy perspective, you really know what's going to happen if you're out hunting and you're scouting and you're trying to pick up on a good sign that you might want to sit over. But yeah, so the success kind of translated early season. I went out for early doe season and plugged a doe and didn't end up recovering it that night because I hit it low.
Mhm.
And she took off, and the neighbor ended up calling and the next day and saying, "Hey, I found someone's doe." And that was that. But it was like, okay, that worked out. But it translated to a lot of good success this season. But I also attribute the time in stand,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Like, increase your odds, increase your percentages by also devoting time. If it's a Saturday morning, a Saturday, Sunday morning, work around it with your families, your kids. You gotta balance that the work life balance. You gotta hunt life balance,
Yeah.
right? You kind of gotta, you know, make sure everybody's taken care of at home and get out when you can. But I also have very flexible, um, you know, my wife is very flexible with me being able to go
Mhm.
out and hunt when I can, and so we kind of work around that. But she's happy when I bring meat home as well. So
I bet.
eating on that thing all year long. But
You had plenty of meat this year too. You said a couple things back there that I think a lot of people can take away, even if they're not going to use traditional. So one, getting the reps in. I feel like I see a lot of guys who come in and I fell victim to this when I first started hunting. Is I wanted to shoot the big, Pope and Young, and so I wouldn't shoot anything. The does came in, I wouldn't shoot them, and then when small bucks come in, I wouldn't shoot them. And my reality was where I was hunting in Michigan, I probably wasn't going to see a Pope and Young, and especially at my skill level, I wasn't going to. So fast forward time, and then good bucks start coming in, and I don't actually have the muscle memory to deal with the situation at hand. And so I had to learn way late in the game how to like have composure, how to handle myself, and I had to go back and just start shooting more deer. And I think that's something that if you're just getting into this right now, shoot deer. Like
mhm,
shoot the does that come in, go out early doe season, do that. The other thing you said that I think is really important for people to hear is the repetition part. I think it makes you a better archer, better hunter all the way around. Compound bows, crossbows, they make it pretty easy. You can go in and sight in a bow relatively fast, and you can get shooting good at 20 yards. And like we just talked about, most shots are 25 yards and in, at least for us. And you can walk away without doing a lot of reps. I bought a
mhm.
V3 2 years ago, and it was a 27-inch, and I couldn't shoot it to save my life, and I didn't know what was going on. And we both have long range archery hats on, and so I brought it there, and I'm like, "Hey, I don't know what's going on with this bow; it's out of tune." And they're like, "No, it's you. Like you're not gripping right." So torque was an issue. So I started shooting like you, and when the time came to execute, because I shot so much every single day to get to learn how to shoot that bow, it made me way more comfortable when the time came. So if anybody can just take away from what you said, I think those two things: shoot a lot of deer if you're not at that point yet, keep doing that, and get in those reps. Because I don't know, how do you feel like? I mean, do you feel like you evolved as a hunter? I mean, with doing what you had to do to switch over to traditional.
Yeah, big thing is confidence kills. That,
Hmm.
outside of boots on the ground, you have to be confident in your setup. You have to understand that thing. It's just like maybe a classic car you got been working on for years in your garage, and you can list out all the specs and everything where your buddies come over or whatever. But when you shoot a bow and you don't have a sight and you're practicing in the dark and you're just relying on your senses and the foam target's down there and you're hitting it at 35 yards,
Hmm.
you're in tune. Yeah. So when you feel that, if daylight strikes and you got something coming in at 20, it sure heck makes it a lot easier. So I practice putting myself in situations that make me uncomfortable, shooting at longer distances. right? So 36 yards
Hmm.
to 40 yards is kind of where I'll cap out in the backyard, right? I'm not saying I shoot that with my traditional bow at deer, but I want to be able to shoot at longer distances. So when that 15, 20-yard shot comes into
Hmm.
play, it's a chip shot, right? I also, there's no let off with traditional equipment. So I'll practice holding my bow for 20 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute if you can, whatever it is, right? Like
Hmm.
hold that, feel that, and then see where you're at shooting and see how your control is, your torque on your hand, on your grip, because you're often going to find your mistakes when you start shooting more. And
Hmm.
so understanding that too and saying, okay, I know if I shoot 40 times in the backyard, I'm going to start developing bad habits, right? So I'm going to go out and I'm going to only shoot 20. Next day, I'm going to go out. I might only shoot 10. Next day, I might go out and shoot 20. And I avoided putting myself in
Hmm.
situations where I wasn't, where I might have put myself in a spot where I didn't feel confident, but I was just maybe tired and I overshot that day, right? So if you keep hitting that every day, 6 shots, 10 shots, 15 shots, you're going to start to build that confidence level. And then having some history behind that to say, man, I've been killing deer up to this point pretty consistently. I sure can translate this over into the traditional equipment. So that's, yeah, I mean, you do develop, there's definitely a different sense of it too, because the other thing is too, you could draw your bow back pretty early with the compound, wait for that deer to come in. I
Hmm.
can't hold 50 pounds for that long. So you have to be very in tune with that deer as well to pull off the shot. And sometimes that
Yep.
can be pretty difficult if you're like me. I only hunt 2 sticks high, and most of the time I'm shooting at deer that are 10 yards right in front of me. So it's like you have to be very careful. But hybrid hunting helped a lot for me this year. I think I devoted 99% of my hunts to hybrid hunting, and I
Hmm.
used the tree as a blocker for that mid to late season when I started losing foliage, right? When your back cover starts dropping, you have to put something in front of you to just put you in between the deer, right? If
Yep.
it's early season, I'm totally fine setting up in front of it because I got a lot of good back cover, a lot of surrounding foliage around me, and I can make a clean shot. But yeah, late season, it's a bit different. So it's just changing your strategy as the season progresses, understanding the situation at hand, right? Fourth quarter, right? You're down by 10. It's like, what are you gonna do? You got to switch it up if you're gonna win.
So what is hybrid hunting for people who don't know?
Yeah, so hybrid hunting is basically blending saddle hunting and tree stand hunting as one. So for me, um, there's probably a compelling argument that says, well, why do both, right? Like you either tree stand hunt or you saddle hunt. For me, I liked using the point five
Hmm.
and being able to sit down when I want to sit down. And for hunting with traditional equipment, I wanted to hunt out of a tree stand with it because I was dealing with a much longer bow, like a 62-inch bow versus a 27-inch bow is a
Yeah.
big deal,
Yeah.
right? So I didn't really want to have to try to worry about fighting my tether with the saddle. I just needed to get comfortable shooting it and I needed to put down deer. So I thought, man, this tree stand probably is going to be the better option for me right now. And with that point five, it's really like 6.5, 7 pounds for the tree
Yeah.
stand. So when you look at a traditional platform that's 3 pounds plus a pack that's 3 pounds, that's 6 pounds. The stand is your backpack, right? It's the same,
Yep.
right? So there's not really a weight savings there or much of a loss or penalty to it. So again, confidence kills, go with your gut, trust the process. And what I decided to do, I ran the TX5 Minimalist 2.0. It's a saddle. Um, and when I wanted to hunt hybrid out of the setup, because when you're hunting mobile, you sure do know a lane that you're hunting on, you expect deer movement to come down, but not every time.
That's right.
In most cases, you could have deer backdoor you. And one benefit that I like with hunting hybrid is I could easily change my position to face towards the tree and use that as a blocker for deer, and also still be able to swing around the tree to take a good shot,
Mhm.
right? Because one of the benefits from saddle hunting is that you can move 360 degrees potentially with a set of ring of steps around the tree to be able to take a shot, but it also helps open lanes,
Mhm.
right? That may have been closed if you were just in that tree stand and trying to figure out where you needed to shoot. If you rotate around that tree, man, you might have a whole new lane there you never would have saw.
Mhm.
So I think you have to be able to apply some of that stuff in the moment. And so I just like, man, I'll do the best of both worlds here. But the other piece to it is too, when you sit down in a saddle and you put your knees up against the tree, that's that circumference or radius around the tree. So your knees hit, they have to kind of be pointed to the middle.
Mhm.
And if they go too far off, it'll kind of want to roll you to one side of the tree or the other. And so you're kind of fighting that. When you flip up the seat on that 0.5
Yeah.
and you flip the foam over and you can just rest your knees on that flat surface, you're locked in.
Mhm.
It is extremely comfortable, and it gave me a better appreciation for saddle hunting with the hybrid setup because I was able to tailor a little bit more where I was struggling with that when I was saddle hunting and I didn't want to have to take in knee pads.
Mhm.
Right? Because
Mhm.
there's other stuff with saddle hunting that like you have to take or you don't have to take, I should say, but in the marketing world, it's like these are extras that are going to help you be a better saddle hunter or help you be more comfortable. And I just less is more for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you see the ATA? Did you see? I think it's XOP came out with a hybrid saddle like stand.
Novix. Yeah.
Was it Novix that did it?
Yeah, they
Okay.
dropped that. Yeah, it's 8 pounds. It's very small, and the cables went through the center.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah, the seat looks like it's 4 pounds. Like, I don't know. Like for me, it might be in theory um like a like a new marketing scheme or
Hmm.
hey, hybrid saddle hunting, that kind of thing. But if it's not practical and it's not functional, it's not going to be appealing to me.
Yeah.
But for Novix, there might be a broader customer there that, guys like Novix, guys might buy that one because they're in a helo,
Hmm.
right? Or
Hmm.
jump into something like that. Maybe I'll try out the hybrid hunting. But I think the big issue I see with that is uh is the cables because they
Yeah.
run right down to the middle. So the all the breaking point in the material is at the center for either cable. I mean, all the weight's going to be pulling on that point of contact. And I don't know.
Yeah.
For me, I think that design might need some tweaking. Um,
And
but
this is why people should go check out your YouTube channel because this is how you break things down. You talk
yeah,
about things like that and with a real open, honest, conversation. Like you'll look at the good and bad and share it. So really
yep.
good. So you go in, you kill a doe early season. How does the season start to unfold for you after that?
Yeah. I had an encounter with a buck, a big eight, and he was solid mid 30s eight, big,
Yeah.
early season, shaking in the morning. And this guy, I mean, he's not one of the bigger deer I've seen on the hoof in Michigan, but he's up there. And I am waiting for this guy, and it's early season, and he is up out of his bed and he is just checking on does. And I was right on the bubble, right on the cusp. And it was almost like this little perimeter check. Like he just popped in. He knew where these does were going to be coming through. He came right out of the marsh from this peninsula, checked, and then went right back, nose and right in the wind and took off. And I had him at 40 yards.
Mm.
And I'm thinking, man, why am I using this
Yeah.
traditional bow?
Yeah.
But this is insane. So I'm second guessing myself, right? Like the whole time I'm just like, you would have been dead, but
Yep.
in retrospect, I probably would have forced a bad shot, you know.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
the thing is, a traditional, it's going to teach you a lot about patience and persistence and just getting in closer, right? That's some of the stuff that I started to learn and building towards my success. We'll get to that on some of the other deer, but it's like I might be okay in that bubble as a compound because I know I have a 40-yard shot, but as a traditional, archer, I really need to close that gap even more to
Mm-hmm.
point. And you know what that did? It forced me to get deeper.
Yep.
It forced me to keep going. It forced me into the sauce.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happened.
Yeah.
I started getting past that comfortable point of compound and getting more aggressive because I knew I had to close the gap with this traditional equipment. And it reaped the rewards. I'm
Yeah.
telling you.
Yeah.
And it's boots on the ground type stuff, right? You have to, I'm not a bed hunter.
Yep.
I'm that's not me. I'm gonna find out where they're bedded and I'm gonna ambush them on the food.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I live. That's where my success is. And I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna get a general understanding of boots on the ground, find out where the food source is. I'm gonna do my scouting. I'm gonna find out where the heavy topography trails lead me. And then I'm gonna look at the habitat,
Mm-hmm.
right? High stem count, deep big woods, swamp, bedding areas, getting on the downwind side of those bedding
Mm-hmm.
areas. That's where I live.
Yep.
Downwind side of bedding, in between food and bed, and I'm gonna set up and I'm gonna push in as far as I can. Well, what happened is I when I went in on a hunt, I was on the ground with a buck at 10 yards. Had no idea I was there, and I was just dropping milkweed right at him, and I was in an advantage where I could kill him, but he was a small spike.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm using this information on my setup right now as intel. I want to find out and throw milkweed to see what happens. What's my bubble and radius to this deer right now? This doesn't happen that often. He's
Mm-hmm.
in here because he's comfortable, right? And I got like a little bit closer to 8 yards, and he never saw me, but he went and started picking up his nose. He picked up that scent. He took a couple steps and looked. He backed off and he disappeared in that high stem count bedding area. And I said, okay, I know based off this wind, how I'm set up, I can't get closer because
Mm-hmm.
they're going to bust me before I even have a chance to shoot them. So I set up off of that about 10 yards
Yep.
or so. So I have about from where that high stem count stuff, about 20 yards, range. And doe comes through, gets plugged, right? He takes off. I had another buck, nice 8 come through, shot him, went over his back. I'll tell you, like the good and the bad with the longbow stuff is, yeah, I took a lot of deer this year. I also missed a lot of deer, and I also hit front shoulder on a handful of deer that I never recovered. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to understand that you're shooting equipment that isn't as sophisticated. You're gonna have problems. You're gonna have heartbreak, and going back to just getting a lot of reps and killing a lot of deer. It's essential towards building that confidence. So when something mature does come in, you're ready. But yeah, so over the course of the season, just putting in time in the stand, I was able to take a handful of does. I took I wouldn't say nice archery buck, but I got a good buck in the mobile hunter challenge that we did
Yeah.
this year. And I mean, it was just a 2.5-year-old 7 point, but it was my first buck with the traditional. And so that was pretty interesting. And maybe I'll touch on that story a little bit, but
Yeah.
basically how I set up was on a pinch point to a larger oxbow type horseshoe peninsula. It's like really big. I mean, you're talking a peninsula that's maybe 300 yards wide by 500 yards long. And I got in this little pinch point that was maybe from the river to a 2-track trail was maybe like 60 yards of just this narrow strip. And I thought, man, if anything comes off of a food source and goes back to bed near this oxbow, I can intercept them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had a couple does come in early, and they kind of winded me, kind of swirled because in that morning I'm kind of getting this thermal convection pull, but I'm waiting for the winds to override and for that temperature to increase. So there's always this, you'll see it or feel it. You're throwing milkweed and you're going, man, I thought this was a west wind and it's blowing the other way and it's pulling a different direction. It's just that cooling, that thermal activity is still overriding that wind. So you just have to be cautious of that. So for this setup, I sat in the middle. So I allowed it to pull either way. But once it did, I knew it was going to go north or south. And I was expecting the movement to come east and west.
Hmm.
So under that general understanding, I knew I was in the safe zone. So, anyways, this buck comes in at about 8:40, hunting hybrid, tree right in front of me. He's coming in and it's like 16 yards. He's closed the gap and he's quarter two. And I already knew from where the other two were when they winded me. I said, man, I got to shoot this deer now. I don't really want to take a quartering two shot. But here's the bad part with a compound mindset is I can shoot
Yeah.
that,
Yep.
right? Right? Like with traditional equipment, man, you love them broadside because you got all those vitals to work with. A quarter two, and you got to try to pocket that thing in a very precise location because you're either going to hit front shoulder, you're going to miss low, or you're going to swing it left and you might hit them in the neck,
Hmm.
right? So you just got to be, again, aware of your situation. But everything leading up to this point, all the hours logged practicing and shooting foam, and it's here. And so I draw back and I get settled and I release, just a super clean release. And I just watch that arrow, like almost felt like slow mo kind of deal. And it's just spinning. I see it drop and it just goes right into that pocket. And I punched his heart
Nice.
and he didn't go 40 yards. And it was such a great feeling of being able to accomplish a goal of mine, not only to do it in that mobile hunter challenge, but to shoot a buck with traditional equipment with a bow that I've never even touched before until this year. So
You,
that was very unique and very cool.
you
Uh,
want to talk about the challenge and how that came apart or how it came
yeah,
together? Yeah.
yeah. So I a lot of where I find value in hunting is always with a community of other guys, like-minded guys, and I just think of sharing camp, right? Like,
Hmm.
I think there's more to be said about the connections you make with people than the actual hunt. Of course, it's
Hmm.
great to be able to shoot a deer, a nice quality buck, or whatever it is, but to be able to share the suck, share the pain, share the love, high five a guy,
Yeah.
the success stories. Hey, what did you see this morning? That camp banter, right?
Yep.
Like everyone's waking up and we're all experiencing the same grind together. It's like a band of brothers, if you will, right?
Yep.
So it's just cool. I thought, man, I think it would be interesting to like just grab a couple of local guys here in Michigan that we've met over the course of a handful of years or through, socials or whatever that we've been following, and come to find out a lot of the close friends that I might talk to, you talk to,
Yep.
and it's like, man, we're all intermingled. Let's try to connect the dots here and see if we can get everyone to go to a spot and just give it hell for the weekend. So that's what we did. We said, okay, we're gonna pick a spot on the map. We're gonna go here. No one's ever been there before. We're gonna do it in a weekend, and we're gonna shake and bake.
Yeah.
Like, let's make it happen. And it was great. I was tripping over sign left and right. That whole story that I just told about the deer and the missing the doe and shooting the doe or missing the buck and all that stuff was all in the same weekend. I was
Yeah.
I was in it, and it was a lot of fun. So I hope it's something that we continue. We were already talking about doing it next year and having someone else, Jace, uh, he said, man, we got to go to this other spot that I know up north. We should go hunt there next year. And it's like, that's exactly what I hope comes from this is a
Yeah.
continuation to be able to hunt with guys and share camp.
Yeah. It was what's funny about that. So you extended the invite to me and I have a trail cam there that's been there. It's a cell cam. It's been there for 2 years and it's still working.
Yeah.
So I got sidetracked with a different thing, so I couldn't go. But as I'm doing my thing, I'm actually getting pictures of some really nice bucks. And
Yeah.
I'm sending them off and going, hey, if anybody
Yeah.
if anybody wants
Yeah.
to go and sit in this pen here, but you guys were all over it. And
Yeah.
again is another situation where you made me feel less than because I've actually scouted that area quite a bit, and I got it. I have a nice little honey hole there.
Yeah.
But man, I've never ran into as much sign as what I was seeing you guys, talk about and post. I'm like, man, it was lit up. I mean, you had scrapes wide. This is middle of October. You had some huge scrapes,
Yep.
wide open. What I love about that, and maybe you can walk some of the listeners through this. So you never went there before, is that correct?
I had hunted there about 10 years ago.
Okay. I mean, that's a
But
long time. Yeah.
yeah,
So how
yeah,
did you start to, I mean, because that's a big piece. And how
yeah.
did you break it down and figure out where to go? And I was talking to Josh and like he was really impressed with your ability to start breaking down sign and getting right into it. You sounds like
Hmm.
you got into it pretty quick. So do you want to
Yeah.
talk a little bit about how you did that?
Yeah. I'll start again, like boots on the ground, having a lot of experience in reading the woods and being able to firsthand look at a map, right? Like when no one's been there, but we all have access to Onyx, Spartan Forge, and those other maps, Google Maps, whatever. So put in the homework and the time, listen to other podcasters, break down maps. I do that,
Hmm.
right? I can't do it for everybody and digest a ton of all that
Yep.
information. It's loaded out there. But if you find the right guys and you really listen to what they have to say, you can start applying some of that stuff to yourself.
Hmm.
But again, there's a difference between saying, hey, I think this might be a good spot to check out, and then going in there, right? I'm looking for tree stand pressure. I'm looking for boot tracks. I'm looking for trucks in the parking lot. I want to go somewhere where there isn't anybody,
Hmm.
and I'm driving by and I'm seeing trucks, 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 and guys all walking out as I'm driving by because I'm getting in on like a Thursday evening, right, to set up for the weekend. And I hit a spot which for me it had a great transition of uh, kind of like open hard woods, but also was an area that was loaded with marsh and
Hmm.
swamp. And in this section, it's kind of really the only spot to find that kind of topography
Hmm.
in that area. And so,
I know exactly when you were talking about killing your deer and you explained it, I know exactly where you're at.
yeah,
And you're right. And it gets overlooked. The guys go the other way. Like I don't want to
yeah,
talk about too much about it, but the guys
yeah,
go the other way and they overlook that because it's a smaller section, right? It's kind of
yep,
like yeah, so
100%.
yep, yep,
And all of it kind of in that northwest corner, it transitions, a hard line stops and goes to private.
yep,
And so I'm also anticipating a lot of non-hunting pressure,
yep.
right? Like you have to, again, set yourself up for success, and that isn't going with the other guys,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, that's right.
I would much rather take my chances on a parking spot that doesn't have a truck in it or any sign and knowing I have this place to myself,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
But I also have that same respect as well to say there's a truck there. I'm not going there,
Yep,
right?
yep,
So the only way I'm able to develop those habits is hoping that another hunter doesn't do that to me. And you hear the horror stories where you're like, man, I had this guy set up 50 yards away from me with his headlamp. He knew I was there and he still hunted. And it's like, well, yeah, there's moments like that that I think we're all going to have to come across. But, if you put yourselves in situations like that for success, low pressure spots, overlooked pieces,
hmm
you're going to start finding deer because they're going to adjust to pressure,
hmm
right? Like
yep.
they're still there. They're not moving and like down like 400 miles. They're just going to say, okay, mental check. I'm going to note that spot, setting up a ladder stand there. Every time I access that, I'll just go downwind of the ladder stand before I come through, right? It's like you have to be able to apply some of that, the basic principles of how a deer is going to react to pressure, especially in Michigan.
Yeah, yep,
So,
yeah.
yeah, for a breakdown, I again, like when I look at it, it's food, topography, and then I'm looking for just bedding areas or transition pieces where it's got a good mix of habitat. So if it's just open woods and it's just open woods,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, why is a deer ever going to come through here? Or what's its purpose to even be in this area? There isn't, unless it's loaded with acorns, right?
Yeah, yeah, and even then, I mean, depending on how far away the cover is, right?
Yeah.
Like it could be nighttime by the time you could see a ton of sign in that open woods. I watch it. It's so funny. I love the boots on the ground scouting because you see a lot of guys who are set up in this big open area with no cover, and they got the ladder stands and stuff like that. And I'm wondering, how long do they actually sit in those spots? Because they're not going to see a whole lot because the sign is made, at nighttime in most areas. So when it's
Mhm.
like that, so you're looking at when you talk about topography, what are you looking for? I mean, you talked about bedding, and this isn't known bedding because you've never been there, but it looks like an area where deer can bed.
Yeah.
And what else are you looking for when you talk about topography?
Yeah. It's actually, I love sections that have multiple military crests that
Mm,
all kind of lead into maybe a larger pinpoint to where they're going to use that to commingle from maybe different bedding locations based off wind, but still be in the same perimeter area. And then also still are patternable to get to food in the evenings.
mhm.
So I can, for instance, going there and hunting where we were for that challenge. The spot on Onyx, it looked like a low stem count, high stem count kind of mix. And I went there, boots on the ground, and it was all corn. It
Wow.
was corn. The maps weren't even what it shows on the topo. It
Yeah.
and whatever happened, they tilled it all up and they planted corn, and the maps weren't updated.
Yeah.
Another great point to go back to boots on the ground, right? Again, found it,
Yep.
right? And I'm going, okay. And so I left that area, went all the way around it, and I backdoored it.
Yep.
And I backdoored those spots where I anticipated the deer to bed, and I started bumping does
Yeah.
off of all of those military crests. And I said, okay, that was just hitting one crest. So I knew I bumped him over to the next. So I backed out. I went back around and I set up for the evening and I positioned myself knowing there's deer there and got on those military crests for them where they were bedded, knowing that they're going to come up to that corn and I ambushed them
So
right
you
there.
didn't get all bummed out that you bumped some deer and you didn't jump in your truck and leave,
Nope.
and I think that's what a lot of guys do sometimes. They feel like they blew the whole area out and they got to leave now. And you just sat through and thought through the logical where they're going, and then I'll make a plan for that. That's awesome.
Yep. And
Yeah.
again, they're adjusting to the pressure and they're betting in
Mhm.
that spot because they know it works.
Yep.
You want to know what? I went back there in the morning and hunted it the next morning because I was like, this is too good to leave,
Yeah.
right? It's just one of those deals. And the wind again was favorable for those deer to bed in that same spot. And so I thought I would be able to come up and backdoor it. And for some reason, the thermals and everything, I thought that that cooling action would kind of pull down and I'd be bulletproof and I could just
Hmm.
set up on the back side. For whatever reason, it was kind of pulling back up to those deer right there. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is bulletproof. There's no way. And I got in there and I'm just seeing green eyes. They're already back in their bed.
Yep.
So I
Yep.
actually backed out of that spot that morning and went to that oxbow area and killed that buck on a plan B.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. That
Yeah.
is so cool. And that
Yep.
was over what? I mean, really 1 or 2 days because you had rain. You
Yeah.
guys weren't even able to move some of the time, right?
Yep. Yeah. It was pretty tough. I mean, I think Friday evening it was uh, kind of damp, but still huntable. And
Hmm.
then Saturday was pretty much full rain all day, but it kind of broke mid-evening. So like three-ish, I think, is when it stopped. And then Sunday it was on and off again, kind of stuff. But we're packing up and headed out after that last morning hunt. But yeah, I mean, weather permitting, it's always tough. But the deer live in it. You got to adjust to it. And I know for some guys, they look at that and they go, "Man, I'm not going out in the rain. I'm not getting soaked." Right?
Yeah.
We're there. We don't have a choice. We're
Hmm.
hunting, right? And so you have to also understand deer are going to also be moving based off those pressure systems, right? So you
Yep.
see a lot of activity, but you also see them bed down when it starts to rain. But as soon as that rain stops, they're back on their feet.
Yeah.
So
That's why I wasn't there.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
I had that situation going on in my other area, and I actually got up early in the morning in the rain and made my way because I had to go through a bunch and
yep,
sat in the rain all day until the break. You know, I'm watching it and then I'm like, okay, I'm moving in and I'm going to be in the tree stand when the break happens. And I don't know, 45 minutes later is when I got mine. So we were hunting the same system that day. I was just a little bit further south of you guys, but yeah, that's the actually, I mean, I've always got in there on the back end of something like that, but I think using that technique and being right there, that's something I'm going to utilize more in the future. You know, it doesn't hurt to sit out there and get a little wet, you know?
yeah. Especially if you know it's gonna break.
Yeah.
Like to sit in the rain just to sit in it can be tough.
Yeah, I don't like doing the whole all day in a rain thing, but
Yeah,
around a break, like I'm
yeah,
okay getting wet, waiting for that break.
yeah,
So,
yep, 100%. And then as you get closer to the rut, expecting more midday movement, it might be more enticing to do it. But again, like going kind of back into the traditional thing and just blood trailing and tracking, I mean, it's just not your friend, right?
yeah.
So it's tough. I mean, you talk about stacking the odds not really in your favor, do it in a rainstorm
Yeah.
on
Yeah,
a
for
bad
sure.
hit or a gut shot or a
Yeah.
high hit, one lung hit where you may be bleeding internally, but there isn't any blood to track at all because it hit high, right? Like
Yep.
there's just a lot of that stuff you got to think about. Yeah.
So mid-October, you get a buck down, you've killed a bunch of does, and every time you say you kill a deer, I start laughing. So people are going to see it on the video, and it's because like us in the group, we're laughing every time you put another deer down because you just went on this killing spree, and it was so
Yeah.
fun. It was so fun to watch.
Yeah.
So you get that buck down. Walk us through the other part of the season because it keeps going for you.
Yeah. So, I do a little bit of dabbling with public land, private land, micro private land pieces. And then I have a lease out in South Dakota as well. And basically, I kind of looked at my season to say, okay, everything that I'm doing up through Michigan right now is almost preparing me for my hunt on my lease out in South Dakota, where I have a week out there. That I'm gonna probably have an encounter with some mature deer. I've heard the pressure in Michigan's tough,
Mhm.
and the deer aren't of the same caliber for other states. So you often find yourself going out of state to hunt,
Yep,
right? Like
it's my
I'm
bread
in
and
that
butter.
same boat, right? Like at the end of the day, like I love hunting deer, but I also like extending my season,
Hmm.
and I can throw in another non-resident hunt. I can go in and maybe shoot a different class deer that I'm never going to have an encounter with in Michigan. And then you start building reps for that over a course of 10 years. Man, you see a different animal. You
Yeah. Oh yeah.
understand exactly how they're moving and what they're doing, stuff that is irreplaceable
Hmm.
evidence on things that you see in the field that you probably won't find anywhere else. And
I
so that,
yeah. I can't say it enough. Like, especially if you're one of these states where you don't have that mature, age class, um, get out and go to some of these other states because you don't have to be like I think in the beginning of this intro, I say something about being the white belt sensei for the dojo. Like I'm not skilled, I'm not like this great hunter, but when I go out of state, I get opportunity at older, bigger bucks just because there's older, bigger bucks, And so I'll say it in every podcast probably. If you're in one of these states where you don't have that, go. I mean, even go to even Indiana's starting to get a little bit tougher, but even like Indiana, it's a $225 tag. And you're gonna run into a 120 incher down there. So if you haven't killed a 120 inch buck yet, go to somewhere like that and you're going to. You put in the work and use a little bit of knowledge and you'll get it done. But anyways, yeah, go back to your
yeah,
story here.
yeah. And, so again, we're all beginners once, and it's to that point, if you're going to go non-resident, you're going to learn something whether or not you shoot the deer or
Yep.
not. And you're often going to find out if there's equal pressure. And it's just again extending your season. But I
Hmm.
have the rack of the deer, so for
Yeah,
those
this
that
thing.
are watching, I'll share this so you guys can see. But
Yeah.
um, pretty mature deer, just solid bases, double split brows.
Yeah.
He's almost 140, but he's got a ton of just nasty, kind of rubbed up, just bark embedded down in his bases. He's got like 5-inch bases at the bottoms, and the mass carries throughout. Super cool, unique buck. And again, this is a hunt out in South Dakota, and it's 3 o'clock, and the snow just hit, right?
Yeah.
And I've been praying for snow. Michigan, we didn't have any really throughout the whole season. It was kind of an off year for us for it. But I get out to South Dakota and we hit a storm on the way in. And as soon as I got there, I got dressed and I went out and hunted. And so this is kind of the the first day getting in, and I killed this thing within a few hours of being in the tree.
That's
So
crazy.
yeah,
That's crazy.
and it's crazy, and he backdoored me at 7 yards. And at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, midday, we're talking mid-November. I think this was like the 10th or 11th, something like that, right in there. And I'm just out of the corner of my eye, I just see this movement, and I'm just like kind of getting set up, right? Like I just plugged in, and I look over and I see it, and I'm like, what is that? And I turn over and look down, and he's just 7 yards standing there right down in the drainage I was in. And he started to work up, and my wind was kind of offset. He had a reason to be there. His wind was to catch all of the wind coming off of the ridge, all of that bedding area. And I was on the furthest side of it in
Yep.
this drainage in this bottom, and it went up to this kind of high ridge point that was very aggressive. These hills out in South Dakota are aggressive. It's up and down. And so I got in tight, and of course he's right there in the bottom with me.
Yeah.
And I'm caught off guard. I'm not ready. I'm like, do I have my tab on, right? Because with traditional equipment, you have to shoot, a tab. So I had that on, luckily, and I had my arrow nocked, and I'm like, okay, here we go. Like, this is happening so quick. It always does,
Yeah, it
right?
does.
It's always cold and miserable, and you feel like it's not going to happen, and all of a sudden, like a light switch, and he's right underneath you. And some of me, it just startled me because I was expecting this grueling hunt out in South Dakota. Got to work hard to try to get this squeeze one out, and it happened within the first few hours. But I shot this deer. He was kind of coming up this knoll, and he was really quartered away to where his butt cheek and his chest cavity were even with each other.
Oh, okay.
And so he was almost standing away from me. But he must have caught some of my movement when I came to full draw, because he was walking up the ridge like this, and he just slightly turned, and he looked back up at me with all of that rack and the double split beams and everything. And I'm going, okay, this is a tight shot. Again, compound mind. I'm going, I can squeeze that in there.
Yep.
Right? I'm going to fire that in. And so I'm sitting there full draw, and he's at 7 yards, and I shoot this thing, and I hit him in the ass.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything sinks at that moment. You're like,
Oh,
no.
oh my gosh. I've never done this before. I've never shot a deer in the butt. And excuse my language if you're listening to this and you got kids in your car, but I'll promise I won't curse anymore. But so he runs off, and I'm going, oh my gosh, I can't believe this has happened. And my wind is now blowing directionally to where he ran. And so I'm going, okay, so he picks up my scent. He's gonna, I'm gonna tip my hand to him that I was there, and he's probably gonna push even further.
Hmm.
So I immediately got down and backed out. And I'm replaying it in my head over and over and over. Here's the struggles of, taking a shot that was very tight, looking back on it, not sure if I should have maybe taken that shot. Learn from your mistakes,
Hmm.
right? But I also understand too, like if you do hit them back and you hit femoral artery there, it can be a pretty lethal kill, almost
Yep.
instantaneous. So, there wasn't just this like all hope is gone type thought process. I got to get back in there. So of course I go in back the next day and I get in there and it's a high hit on the back side and there's little particles of blood, like almost like a Windex bottle spray cleaner type sprays.
Yep.
And it's on top of the snow. And I'm seeing fresh kicked up dirt and soil kicked up over the snow. So I'm going, wow, okay, so if I shot a deer and if I hit a vein or artery, it's gonna have that pressure type spray and those spritz, right? Like I'm kind of going, okay, I think I may have hit that artery.
Yep.
I'm,
Yep.
I'm gonna be optimistic anyways, right? Because I'm like, I got this deer's got to be dead in my head, And so I go in, I track this guy for a handful of hours, which is really about 150 yards to his bed, and I find him, and I just see this, melted section through the snow down to the grass. I see blood off the back corner on his backside, and the wind was hitting him. He bedded there and he was looking back directionally at me where I shot him previously. So he's a smart deer. He's old, he's mature, and he basically was like, this hurts.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put myself in advantage to bed for a minute and just gather myself, right? I'm like, I'm I go up probably another 100 yards and then he opens up a scrape.
No way.
And I'm going, oh, what is going on? I thought in my head, I was like, was this his bed for the night? Because it was all kicked out. I'm like, rationally thinking in my head, like, how did he, like, if I shot him, like, how is he just waking up from his bed and scraping up? And of course he was. He made like 4 or 5 scrapes over the course of the trail that I was on him. And so I ended up having to back out because I was beside myself. I thought, man, I'm second guessing this. I
Yeah.
didn't kill him. If he's making scrapes like this,
Yeah.
it's not a lethal hit, you know?
Yep.
But I back out and I'm going, okay, I'm gonna go back in there the next day because if he is dead, maybe by now, 2 days into it, he's toast or whatever. So I get in there and it's a hands and knees type thing, but I'm persistent and I'm still finding the blood. And I get up to a point where I hit a property line. So it's gone. Jump the fence, went over someone else. I have to contact the landowner, granted me permission to proceed.
Nice.
Yeah. Um, and then I got over and then got back on the blood. And then it kind of opened up into this top knoll, no man's land type, just swale grass,
Yep.
nothing. Just, I mean, it's like Western Wyoming cowboy country type stuff. It's like you're you're not, there's nothing high, no high stem count, no leaves, nothing you can brush against. The soil is so arid and dry. It's not like he's kicking up anything. The snow isn't settling up there. I'm losing it all. And I all of my at that point, I'm thinking, man, I got a grid search.
Mm-hmm.
So I look at the aerial map. I just sit down and I'm just getting into a high point where I can get service to really break down this Onyx map. And I'm going, okay, if I'm a deer with the
Yeah.
wind, based off the wind and the day I killed him, where would I go to bed? And I
That,
thought he went over to this ridge. I'm gonna go down here in this bottom of this ridge on no blood, and I'm gonna work the back side of it where I expect him to bed, and I we'll see what happens. And I walked down that thing 100 yards, 150 yards, 200 yards, and there he was dead in his bed.
that is amazing. That is a hell of a story. I mean,
Unbelievable.
what you said about there, if I were a deer, man, I think so many guys could have so much more success if they just stopped when they were out in the woods, not just with tracking. I mean, but I'm even trying to find the deer, right? And just think, okay, if I was a deer with this wind, and trying to survive, where would I go? I cannot believe that worked. That was amazing. I saw that photo. You had posted a photo, and you're right. It looked like no man's land. I was thinking, how the heck is this guy out here hunting in that with a traditional bow. I was
Hmm.
like, this is insane. So it's the first time I'm hearing the story. So this is
Yeah.
that's amazing. That is
Yeah.
so cool. And
Yeah.
he looked old to me. I mean, he looked
Yeah.
real old. Like,
Yeah.
any idea
Yeah.
how old do you think he was?
I would guess probably minimum 4.5, but I would probably say 5.5 is probably safe. And for the guys that are just, listeners, this thing is really dark, kind of that
Hmm.
deep chocolate rack and the mass, everything kind of carries, and you start seeing split brows and some different characteristics like that. It's beyond that just stereotypical like 8 point
Yep.
mainframe, 10 point, that kind of thing. So yeah, he's got a lot of character, good spread, good mass. I mean, the thing is out there with South Dakota, it chews you up and spits you out because the weather can just it gets you.
Hmm.
It's 30, 40, 50 mile an hour winds on most occasions. It's open hill country, but those bottoms, if you can get into those bottoms out there, it is just a magical place and it holds big deer. And I
Everybody who
love it.
everybody who wants it right now is like, shut up.
Yeah. Look, I know I get it, the spot burn and all that stuff, but here's the thing too. We had that lease for a year and we already lost it. So I'm not gonna be
Oh,
back. Yeah. So bummer and of that situation. So I'm actually kind of trying to pivot and see what I want to do for 2024. So I don't know if maybe that's a different lease if I can find something to hunt out there because that's my rut vacation week off dedicated to uh, a lifetime type hunt, right? And this isn't like, oh hey, there's a pile of corn, you go sit on top of the corn, and Barry comes out at 2 p.m. on this cornfield in this pasture, you can shoot them, right? Like there's none of that,
yeah.
right? Like you're going out there to hunt based off the premise of which you think is going to give you the highest success rate. You go out there and you try to get set up to kill a deer,
Yep.
and it's a great spot to be. But again, with South Dakota, it can be, pretty tough hunting, but it's also very rewarding in that same regard. But here's the other thing to it. Like I save every paycheck. I put down, $200 a paycheck, and I just throw that in the piggy bank. And I
Yep.
keep doing that, and I keep doing that, and keep doing that. And then I got a little slush fund. So if something like this doesn't work for me, where I can't go to South Dakota this next year, I got enough money to buy a non-resident tag to Missouri. I can go hunt some public ground down there. I can jump in the truck with Matt and go down to Indiana,
Heck yeah, man.
right? And he can show me
Anytime.
where all the 200-inch deer live, right?
Yeah. No, no,
Yeah,
yeah. That is amazing, man. That's so cool.
yeah,
So anything else with your season? So I mean, so just to recap a little bit, you put a
mhm,
world of hurt on does. Like,
yeah, yeah,
you really helped out some of the buck to doe ratio. You go in, you get 2 bucks so far.
yep,
You had a ton of encounters.
yep,
Again, I want to like emphasize this that you're getting in closer. Like this traditional path pushes you to get in right into the spot.
yes.
All of a sudden, I mean, it's blowing. Is this a typical year for you? I mean, I don't know. I mean, are you usually in the deer like this, even with your
Yeah,
compound?
I would say, like I said, on average, I've probably taken 4 deer a year.
Yep.
And it's intermittent based off of quality of deer, but overall, let's just say a handful of does and a couple bucks.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, it still works out in my favor for the most part, but not like it was this year as
Yeah.
far as encounters and either shots and missed opportunities, successful, hunts where I was able to recover a deer, or, like I said, hitting a few that I hit front shoulder on that I never recovered. I've missed um, two other bucks that
Yeah.
were 100 inches.
Yeah.
And there was a doe that she had two fawns with her, and I shot her and hit her front shoulder. And that the arch nemesis, man, that shoulder, it just with traditional equipment, you're dealing with, slower speeds, and you have to compensate by heavier arrow weights to punch through it. And for me, I'm at 50 pounds on my setup at around 550 total grains for arrow weight. So it's relatively heavy, but some might think it's also still light for traditional stereotypical traditional arrow setups, but it blows through a lot of deer. I've shot and double lunged and got full pass throughs with it, so it's not definitely a power thing. It was a shoulder for that doe that day, but um, yeah, it's just like I said, it got to a point where it just allowed me. I felt forced to take another step further to get in deeper, to start, kind of finding that bubble and then testing and pushing the limits, and kind of jumping out of my comfort zone a little bit to say how far is too far. But
Yep.
also, if you don't go too far, you'll never know. So I always try to keep it, optimistic in the fact that, like, if I bump deer, either way, you still learn something.
Yeah.
And if you're on them, then you just have to be able to understand where they were at and maybe see if you can still set up on them. So it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt by any means to bump push deer.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more. I mean, I think I tend to overgeneralize that statement when I've said it in the last couple of podcasts that I've been on, where it's like, especially out of state, like I don't want to set up until I see deer,
Hmm.
and unless it's deer, like if I see a deer crap, then I'm feeling pretty good. If I got a good number of that. A track alone lets me know there's something in the area, but I want to see a little bit more sign, and I definitely love seeing the deer. But you said something like, even talking about how close you could get to that one spike, you're dropping milkweed. I mean, you're intentional with your movements. That's something I haven't said. I've been encouraging people to get more aggressive and get in there, but you can't just go chomping, through the woods. You're not, bushwhacking through there. You're deliberate, you're slow, you're analyzing everything. You are still looking for the tracks, you're still looking for that branch that's broken a little bit. You're dropping milkweed, you're slowly methodically moving in there to get to where you need to go. So and that's what I heard you say, and
Yep.
that fits your personality. I mean, that's what you do. I
Yep.
mean, you take in a lot of data and then make a decision based off of that. You're not just, blowing through things. And
Yep. Because I
yeah,
mean, there's often times too, you're so focused on looking down at your steps to be quiet that you're also missing sign around you.
yeah,
And sometimes I like to take a breather and just step back and assess, read the woods, listen for blue jays,
yes.
right? Like, look and see that, like, if I go in there and just start stomping and not being deliberate, like, I'm not helping myself, right? So take your time and set up and make it an effective and efficient hunt for you, to where you're going to have a high success rate of at least seeing deer. But there's a lot of times where, in that spot that I set up on, man, I will have, this will be a part of my issue here is, I'll sit and for 30 minutes and go, what tree do I need to be in? I
Yeah.
will literally be like, okay, if I'm in this tree, do I have a shot to that side? And I'm like making these decisions at the base of the tree and talking to myself, like, where do I need to be right now? I know
Hmm.
I'm in it. I'm here. Now, which tree is going to give me the highest success rate to do the job?
Yep.
And I'm looking, I'll see a crossroad here on a trail maybe I didn't pick up on. I'm expecting maybe some movement to come here, but if something comes from that other side and tries to get downwind of me, I need to be prepared for that and offset myself to that other trail as well, because that's typically where you get backdoored, and that's typically where you're probably going to get busted by a mature deer. So
Yeah.
yeah, you got to take the time when you're in there for the first time, especially in the evenings, right? Because you have
Yep.
the advantage of daylight.
Yeah.
Like, look around. Maybe not in the morning so much
Yep.
because it's dark, but you'll stumble across some scrapes that you can set up on too if you're just getting into an area for the first time there.
Yeah. So, anything in the late season? Late season was like not really a late season here. So, did you make it out at all and do
Yeah, I
anything?
kind of pushed it to the brim, just getting out and trying to get it done. But I had one buck tag in my pocket. I bumped a buck that I had been chasing out of his bed, and I never could seal the deal on that deer. But yeah, I did have one other kind kind of success story. I took my dad out with me, and we got a Thanksgiving doe that morning with him,
Oh, that's
with a
awesome.
shotgun. So, yeah, I mean, it's just nice to be able to hunt with your dad if you got one out there still. And for me, man, we've both been hunting for years, but we've never killed a deer and been with each other. So, I got a
Oh,
picture with him with that doe, which it's hanging up in my office. So it's great. Like even the little things like that, like someone might shame you or mess around with you on social medias about you shooting a doe or a small buck, but man, everyone's on their own journey.
hmm.
Everyone's learning, and that's the big thing is there's always something to take away from it. And for me that day it was getting take a picture with my dad on the doe,
That's
right?
awesome.
That's special, right? So yeah, it's kind of how the season ended up for me. And you know how December turns out, it turns into December, right?
Yeah. Oh,
That's where
yeah.
you start taking all the does. And
Yep.
it's like maybe you get on some late minute activity. But I'll tell you that last week I was back in the scrapes. I was
Yes.
back in the sign. It like I don't know what happened, but it was like a light switch again where I started to open up. And I'm going, man, it just snowed last night. I'm not expecting to see anything. And here it is. There's 3 or 4 different scrapes opened up within 100 yards of this trail on to cut corn. And
Yeah.
it's like, huh.
Yeah. You and I were talking about a piece that we both lived close to at one point.
Hmm.
And I said on that piece, the last 2 weeks of December, the Bucks are in there. And I was getting nervous trying to like analyze things out on like a podcast or something like that because someone's gonna correct me and go, "You're an idiot." But
Yeah.
I actually believe that like we all know like there's a second rut. That's a pretty trendy thing to talk about right now.
Yeah.
I've got video evidence of it. So I do run a lot of trail cameras and I've run them in that spot for years and I'm watching scrapes open up and watching these bucks come in and there's a doe family group that is in there in that piece and I think they're going after the younger does. I think they're coming in and getting those and just checking. They're just doing another checkup, but it's consistent. The last 2 weeks of December scrapes open up. They're chasing. They're with the does. It's not like a full rut, activity, but it's definitely going on. And I think I really wish you actually lived back over here because I would love to go in there in like the last week of December and just try to break it down with you and take some of those bucks out of there because there's some nice ones in there.
Yeah, it's a tough grind too, because on that, I don't want to again do any spot burning, but there isn't too much for ag in that
Mm-mm.
area really. So it's really hard. You gotta really it's when I looked at that spot, and you kind of have to kind of micro scout that at a smaller level to say, okay, where are they going? What's their food source?
Which is why I think they're there for the does. Like
Yeah,
I think they're traveling to get there, and they're only there for like a short period of time, and then they're gone.
yeah.
That's what my dad shows me year after year after year. And the does, I think, why they're there because they're off of residential. There's some if you drive by through there, there's some feeders, and then there's a horse pasture close by that they usually have hay and stuff like that. So I don't know if they're eating on the hay, or I don't know if that's alfalfa. And if it's alfalfa, they might, but um, yeah. So that's why I think those does stick around there, and it's a high stem count. So they're able to do that. But I think the Bucks are coming back. But anyways, so hell of a year wrapping this thing up.
Mhm.
Um, are you setting goals for this year? I mean, do you have some stuff that you're gonna get into?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because, I set a goal for myself, and then once I accomplished it in 2023, it was like, what now? Like,
Yeah.
right, like how do you top doing that? Right. And for you, maybe it was shooting that buck last year, right? And once you kill him, it's like, okay, I know I
Yeah.
completed my goal, but it's like you don't want to like, did you set the goal like too low to a standard you knew you could meet or could
Yep.
have met? I don't think that's the case for you because being able to shoot a deer of that caliber is very hard to do. So
What you
what a
did
goal.
was, yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I think what you accomplished this year, honestly, way more impressive than what I did.
Mhm. Yeah.
And especially I mean, taking 2 bucks with a traditional bow in your first year. The
Mhm.
second buck is a monarch. I mean, he's old. I actually thought he was more like I mean, what do I know? But I thought he was more like 6.5 years old. Just his face was old. I mean, I saw that thing and
Mhm.
I'm like, that's a dinosaur right there.
Yeah,
And I mean, what you did this year was, I loved watching your season. It was
yeah,
incredible. So yeah,
yeah.
what do you do now, man? Like what's on the,
Yeah, I look at it and I think, man, it'd be nice to kind of keep this thing going with the traditional equipment. So I definitely want to kind of keep, using that good mojo, that dojo mojo
yeah.
magic there and keep it going in 24. But I don't know if I really set goals for myself. I yet for what the season for this year unfolds. There is one thing I do want to do. My oldest son, he's about to turn 8. I'd love to get him on a spring bird this
Yeah.
here. So, I think I took him out last year with me and we dropped a Jake just to shoot one and
Nice.
have him see that. And he loved it, ate it up. And we did a dead bird rodeo and stomped it in the ground to finish it off. But it's such a rewarding thing to be able to take the little ones out with you and see that firsthand excitement and experience. And so, you know, I really, I think as we progress as hunters, it's also a big part in how we pass it along to the next generation. So
Hmm.
I just look forward to doing the dad thing and spending more time out in the woods with my kids. So I think that's probably where I'll end up this spring and see if we can't transition that maybe into a few hunts in the fall too. But I'll have
Yeah.
to start them out on some traditional equipment because I can't,
Yeah.
can't give them a crossbow and make it easy for
Yeah,
them.
that's right.
So
And then are you going to do another challenge this year?
yeah, I'm all
Yep.
in on it. Yeah, I think that's going to be, the initial hunt was awesome. Good small core group of guys. I'm pretty sure that's going to expand. So we'll see what happens from there. And then we'll kind of collectively just get together as a group on a spot and find out what dates work for everybody. So I think that that's going to be something that turns in not maybe just a one-time thing, but could overall turn into a pretty cool tradition as well, just to get a good group of guys together every year. So
Yeah,
looking
I'll
forward
make
to
it. I won't cancel this year.
that. Well, if you do, we'll know why.
Right. I'm fresh out of those, man. I'm not gonna so I'm down. I'll be there. So
Yeah. Send me your
man,
pins.
yeah. Man, I can't thank you enough. This is great. Really appreciate the topic and going over your season and just sharing your mindset. One thing I want to walk away with is that, or people to walk away with, is your mindset. Like
Mhm,
this optimism that you have, even when the situation gets difficult, like with that buck, you get the shot on this buck, but yet you don't put your head down and bail. I think a lot of guys would have not tracked that deer down like you did.
mhm,
And then just throughout the whole season like that, like having things, trucks. I mean, I know that spot you're at. I know it's crazy busy for the challenge. And I've actually driven there and drove away.
mhm,
And because my mind wasn't right, because
mhm,
I pulled in and there was trucks everywhere and I'm like, I'm not doing this. And I left. And you
mhm,
stick it in and you go out and you're in the deer all day. So if people, I think, especially I'm saying this for me, it's keeping that, that mindset of no, I'm going to get it done and I'm
mhm,
confident. And I think when people start to embrace that with, really thinking like a deer, and
mhm.
then with the hard work of the boots on the ground and perfecting your craft, that's what it takes to have a season like you did. So it's just
Yep.
amazing, man. So awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing I think I've always instilled with going kind of behind that optimism kind of piece is just if you have to prepare for success, if you want to be successful,
Yep.
and that is scouting, shooting your bow, spending time looking at the e-maps, talking with other guys, right? Like breaking down some maps. Have your buddy look at a map for you,
Yeah.
right? Like even if there's times too where you might get in a lull and you might feel like you're in a little rust on you and you gotta sharpen up, iron sharpens iron kind of thing. It's just bounce something off of somebody, start the wheels, get those spinning, and then next thing you know, maybe you got a game plan that comes out of something that you weren't looking at before that turns into punching a tag. So
Yeah.
that's a big thing to kind of keep in mind for me, is just putting in the time, and it's like I said, you just have to, if you want to give yourself the opportunity, you have to take those steps.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Man, again, thank you so much. Where can people find you if they want to get a hold of you?
Yeah, my personal Instagram is Ryan Regan, but I run the Saddle Hunter, Instagram page as well, and that's Saddle Hunter HNTR. So no vowels there, but yeah, I have that as well on my Facebook page, TikTok, YouTube. It's all under the same name. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm always willing to lend a hand or help break down a map or talk gear.
Yeah. So like I said, solid guy here. He means it. And thanks again for tuning in to the dojo this week. We are dropping every Wednesday, and so we'll have more to come very soon. But again, thanks a lot, Ryan. And I want to have you back again. Okay. We'll for sure in a few months have you back on.
Sounds like a plan. Thanks,
Awesome, man.
Matt.
Thanks.